Good morning, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Um, my name is Lisa Keys, and I am also known as the Voice of Reason. And I am so excited about this part two of the Connection Code. And first, I would like to introduce our panel. Um, and everyone, ask everyone, you guys doing good? Everybody doing good? Can you hear me?
Well, doing well.
All as
Okay,
well.
okay,
We
good.
doing. We are doing.
Did you watch the fight? Did y'all watch the fight?
Nope, and I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I woke up and watched the highlights this morning.
It was
'Cause
pitiful.
all the people who watched it, they all said that they, well, not all of them. Some of them wish they would have went to bed. So
Man, that was a
Wow.
good fight. The
I want
women,
to.
That women's fight,
yeah,
yeah, I'm
the
about
women.
to say that women's fight was lit.
Hey, I want to first introduce everyone. Okay. I should have started with the fight because I should have known that was going to give me some more commentary. But we are the Hearts of Women. My name is Lisa Keys, and along with me, the Hearts of Women, we have Miss Adrian and Miss Levon and Miss Nodella, and so graciously joining us for part two of the Connection Code are the Hearts of Men, and we want to welcome you guys back and thank you so much for joining us again for part two of this discussion. I think it's very needed, and we are the Empowering Perspective community. You can find us at the Empowering Perspective community on our YouTube channel there. Also, I wanted to take the time again to just give a disclaimer right quick before we get started that we all have our own perspectives, and we want to make sure that we're not trying to impose them on anyone else. And we are just here to have conversations and ask you just to consider what we are discussing, and hopefully it will be beneficial to you. So I want to take a few moments because, of course, this is not possible to do this without our chat. Everyone in our chat, Miss Crystal, Everett, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, His Divine Appointment. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we really appreciate you taking your time to come and connect with us today as we unlock or have this discussion about community. I would say the art of communication. That's what I would say. The art of communication and how we can better and more effectively communicate with each other. So if we want to go ahead now and get started, anyone have any questions or want to add anything before we get started? Thank you, Ms. Nodella, for joining us for your first time. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We look forward to all the value you're going to add to this topic as well. Thank you for joining us. So let's get started. And our first question. So when we left off on part one, we left off on this question right here. So I'm going to ask the question, and then I'm going to ask one of the men to please respond to it. So how can personal space be effectively navigated or communicated in a committed relationship?
I'll go ahead and be the first out to shoot today. First of all, good morning, sisters and brothers. So personal space, man. So I guess for me, this one is kind of funny because I'm one of those why you need so much space kind of people. You know what I mean? Uh, you know, but with that said, I think it's just important just to be honest, right? There's no shouldn't be no secret code to it. There shouldn't be no hidden gem behind it. Just be honest. Just say, hey, I I like my time to do this, or when I come home from work, I want to do this, or when I after the game, I want to do this. Whatever that looks like for you, just communicate it. Just be honest about it. And how should it be navigated? I so and that one is a little bit different to me is because we have to we have to be willing to give up space somewhere for our significant others, right? To be able to have that space, right? Um, Not everybody got a man cave or an office in their house. So maybe I go to the room, you downstairs with the kids or whatever, or and vice versa. But there should be some understanding that this is my space when I'm decompressing, when I'm trying to sit alone in my own thoughts. This is my space. This is where I'm comfortable at. And respect it. On the other hand, we just have to respect that space, respect those moments. A person's space should not be your existence, because then we're not really in a committed relationship if all we have is personal space. So personal space is something that should be momentary. It shouldn't be your existence.
I think
Um,
for
I-
me, I think for me, and you're right, Garfield. I am out of order. I apologize. I think for me, it's important to understand that there's a difference between quality and quantity when it comes down to space. I think a lot of times we get super saturated with the idea of absorbing space with the other person. So we want to spend a large quantity of time together. But I think when we look at the time that we spend together, that should be quality time. That should be when we come together, right? We are very intentional about what that shared space look like. It's also important for each individual person to have their own personal space. Now, if you're worried about what that person is doing in their own personal space, then that goes back to your selection criteria and some of the things that you have not necessarily harmonized with. But it's important for, and I'm gonna just talk about men, it's important for me to have opportunity to have conversations with my brothers, to spend time with my brothers, because they can share some things with me in relation to my thought processes that I may not have considered. Therefore, when I come back, I am a better person when I actually come back to the shared space of relationship. So I'm going to park right there and let that be my response.
As I'm looking at this, I'm looking at, seems like part of the answer is in the question, and that goes back to, you see the word effectively, and then I see the word communicated. So I think that however the personal space looks like between the two people in the committed relationship, I think that they need to talk about that effectively, and both people need to walk away with an understanding of what personal space looks like. What does it look like for me? What does it look like for Shell? Some people, like Gaddy was saying, some people need more space. So, and Gaddy said he a person that he don't need a whole bunch of, like, I think he said personal space and stuff. So I think that those people need to talk about and see what that looks like, because what personal space may look like for me may look different than personal space for her. I remember back in the day, I used to hear these things going on, just conversations between between men and women, and women would say, "Well, we never spend time together," and then men would say, "Well, we watching the game, we spending time together, we're in the same room." So stuff like that, where someone say, "Hey, we're spending personal time together," someone else may say, "Well, no, we're just watching TV and we're not spending time together." And then, that also rolls into the personal space. Look at the bed. Some people need a king size bed. Men say, "I don't want no king size bed. I don't want you over in the next zip code when we land in the bed. I want you a little closer." So we got a queen size bed. So, but for us, that works for us. Some people, when they go to bed, they want their space. They want to be left alone. They want to be asleep. So at the end of the day, both people need to talk about it, communicate effectively with each other. And so both people will understand what personal space looks like for each other. Like Coach was saying and the guy was saying, everybody don't have a man cave. Everybody don't got a she shed. So how do we navigate having our own personal space when we are in the community, in this relationship? And I think that goes back to having effective communication and making sure that both people understands what each other's individual personal space looks like.
I like that. I think that, first of all, don't take it as a personal attack when I want my personal space, and I can't take it personal. If you want to go do something, like, people are different, and what'll happen is people will want you to move like them while you're having your personal space. And I'm a person, like, I will tell you, and I'm gonna do some passive aggressive stuff, which I got to work on, because I'm going to look at you like you're crazy until you move. And then they could be like, what? What's wrong? Because I'm looking like, I don't want you in my space right now. Like, if like me and my wife going to the grocery store, I'm a person, I'm quite sure not unlike any of these men out here, I will spend hours in the store. She want to be in and out, go get it and leave. I'm in there. I know the people. I know the butcher. I know everybody. So I'm walking around every aisle. I didn't make a list. I'm gonna walk down every aisle and get what I want until I'm finished and then go. And I don't want to be rushed. This is my time to, hey, I got out the house. I'm doing this. So it becomes one of those things where you're coming in my personal space, but you want me to enjoy it like you want me to enjoy it, or experience it like you want me to experience it. And that's where, as Unc said, that communication is a key, because while I may say the right thing, you understand by the look on my face that I really don't want you here. And then it can become a problem in the relationship, whereas I'm a person where I gotta have a king size bed. I don't want your hot thigh on me all night. I want you to slide over and so we can have our space, because at some time we, I may roll over or she may roll over and, say, pick up the phone and you're on the phone. I don't want that right here. I'm trying to sleep and you giggling because you seen something funny about the fight last night or something. I need that space where if I roll, I could just be in my own domain.
Yeah, like I'm co-signing what Roland was just saying, because I'm the same way. You know what I mean? Like, Shell knows that if she volunteers with me to go to Lowe's or Home Depot, it's gonna be what it be. You know what I mean? So when I say, hey babe, you want to go to Lowe's with me in the morning, she already know that we may be walking around. I may be having some long conversation with some people, but so she has to accept that. The same thing when the few and far between times that I tend to go with her to Target, I already know what it's going to be. We're going to walk around. She's going to look at a whole bunch of stuff. We're going to be in there for a long time and I ain't getting nothing. My job is just to open up the wallet and pay the bill. And I'm fine with that at the end of the day. But when it comes to those personal times and those things that we like to do individually, we are respectful. Like, she don't come to Lowe's and complain much. I'll know when she's at her limit, because she'll start sitting down. And I'm like, and she'll get on the phone. I'm like, yeah, we've been here for an hour and a half. It's probably about time to go. You know what I'm saying? So, in the same thing when we're over at Target and stuff like that. So I just want to thank Roland again, because he brought up some more thoughts in my head when it comes to personal space and personal time.
And that was my point about understanding the difference between quality and quantity time, right? We want to stay like stuck in a person's personal space. And then when we get, we had enough, we're tired, we want to go, then it's like, oh, well, it's time to go. No, it ain't time to go until I say I'm time to go, because I said I was coming here. You came with me. Now you decided to be a part of that. I'm sorry. It is what it is. And to your point, I made that mistake one time when I was married. She wanted to go to the mall, and I'm like, okay, I'll go to the mall. I found myself sitting in the hallway on a bench with some other white guy, right? And he said, you must be married. I looked at him, I'm like, yep. He said, yep. My wife, he said, your wife is in there? I said, yep. He said, mine's too. I said, man, and we just started talking, because at the end of the day, I'm not going to tell her, hey, it's time to go. I'm just going to go have a seat and find somebody else to chop it up with. I knew what I was getting myself into, but I never made that mistake again.
See, so I'm cool with that, right? But when we go to Lowe's, don't you get to looking at your watch then? Vice versa. If I got to rush out of Lowe's, we ain't finna walk through you ain't going in every store in the mall.
Okay, now
or you better find. Go ahead. I knew it was coming.
Let me ask you a question now. So I'm hearing, right? I'm hearing when I'm thinking about the quality time. And I'm hearing that it's necessary for us to have this discussion, that I need some time to myself, and the reason why I'm asking is because we have this misconception when we enter into a relationship that I don't want to say it this way, but I'm going to say it this way because I know that it's something that we have to consider. That we hear, you're my wife, you're my husband, you're my this or that, right? Ownership. And so we're saying that when we enter into a relationship and we become one, there's still this individual, we're still individuals, right? And we are coming together as one. So it's necessary for us to have the quality time. I know and the women are going to chime in now, but I know they're going to say, I want my space too. And so we have to navigate and communicate so that there won't be any confusion. Like if you decide to opt to go to Lowe's with me and you know that I like to stay in there an hour and a half and you don't want to be in there, let's make this a pleasant experience for both of us. You stay where you at and let me go where I'm going, and vice versa. So I like the women to chime in on this, if you don't mind.
I like that idea, actually, Lisa. I was thinking that when I was listening to the gentleman, and it's always Home Depot, Lowe's versus Target. I don't know what that thing is. I don't know, but yeah, if it's an hour and a half and you know your partner's going to get tired, why not spend your hour and a half, 2 hours at the Home Depot and the Lowe's? And I go to the Target and the TJ Maxx and the Ross and all the other stores we love to go to, ladies. And then maybe we meet for lunch. And then that's our quality time to talk about what is it that you saw, what home improvement projects you were thinking about doing. You looked at a different paint color and thought about this room. And, you know, maybe I looked at a vase or a plant. And I think that could be a quality time spent once we have done our individual things, come together and kind of discuss it, maybe have lunch. And then that be quality time, because lunch isn't going to be an hour and a half. But, you know, what are your thoughts on that type of dynamic? If you have two separate things that you like to do, the other one not so much, right? But then you come back together and you kind of discuss what both of your individual times were spent doing.
Oh, can I jump on this one, please? Can I? I don't care. I'm sorry. Listen, I'm just being honest. Men don't care what you're going to do in the house, long as we don't come in the house and it look like a zoo, right? You can talk to us about it. We're going to listen. But at the end of the day, that's fine. Yeah, go ahead and do that. That's like me going to Home Depot, like they just said, oh, babe, let me tell you about this awesome power drill I just found. Do you really care about a power drill? No. Let's be honest and transparent. So at the end of the day, sure, you can talk to us about it. We're going to listen because we should listen. We may even respond to give you the impression that we do listen, because we do listen. But real talk, we don't really care as long as the house don't look like a zoo. If I come in this house and it has like pink walls and, you know, all types of flowers and stuff, we might have to have a conversation at that point. So that's the part of knowing your partner. But at the end of the day, what you're seeing in Target, I don't care, because I trust your judgment. Come talk to me about something that's significant. I don't care about that stuff. That to me, that's minuscule. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you want to like talk to me about a revelation you had while you was in Target, while you was walking through Target, something that's different. That's a whole different conversation. But if you want to talk to me about, I just seen these awesome shower curtains, not my thing.
Because what they want to do, they want to bring us into that girlfriend relationship almost. Because what you think about this? I don't really care, but you want me to choose between them. Which one you like? That one? We just picking one. And if you say, what about it? We'll choose that one, because it makes it frustrating, because you've asked us to be honest with you, but you want us to play the role of your bestie, your friend. That's not my role. Like I bought some power tools last week, came home and told her about it. She's like, oh, for real? She don't care about that stuff. And then I went in the garage, messing with my stuff.
She cared when the time is right, because as soon as you told her you bought that power tool, she done put a list together of projects that you need to do. Exactly. She cared a little bit.
What's a little different for me? I come from a construction manager background, so I do visit the Lowe's and the Home Depots, and I pick the colors and the wood and those types of things, and I'm asked those other questions. However, I remember when I first got into the relationship, and there was the man cave, and then there was the back room that's connected to the man cave, and I could come out, I had a seat. But he told me that I had the kitchen and the rest of the house. So I bought myself a she shed, because you're not going to put me in the kitchen or the rest of the house when you have this whole space and you tell me I can come in and I can sit here. no, I don't even want to be in your space. I want my own space. So I then ventured out and got me a she shed. And now he wants to come out and put his beer in my refrigerator in my she shed. I don't know how that worked out. But I do not ever ask my mate to go to the mall. And I'm not going to ask his opinion about what I buy because I know that he don't care. So yeah, that's, my favorite place though of all is to go to the junkyard because I want to drive the cart, through the. I'm just saying.
I got a clarifying question. So he had one room. You had
He
the
had
entire 2 rooms. You had the entire rest of the house, and that still wasn't enough.
Okay, first of all,
I'm just asking.
room. Listen now, the living room is
we want the real.
Because me looking, I was like, I got 2 rooms. You got the rest of the house, and you still need a she shed. Like,
but what's the rest of the house? The community space, the kitchen, and the bedroom. Oh, let's not forget about the bathroom.
That kind of clears it up a little bit. Community space.
Is it community space if I'm in my man cave?
The community spaces, this is where anyone and everyone can come and sit. I'm not a TV watcher, so I'm not in the living room a lot. So I'm either in my office or I'm in my she shed. So,
but he said
yes, I might
room.
Say it again.
But he said you can come in his room, so you got part of that too.
I don't have part of that. I have a chair in his room. Okay. I have a seat.
I think the point is that we don't necessarily know what goes on in her household, so we got to take what she say as law.
Yeah, and I was looking at it from a numbers game. It's like the first when I first heard it, it was like, well, he has 1 room, and then when I asked, you said he had 2 rooms. So I'm thinking in my head, okay, he had 1 room, and she had the other 12 rooms in the house. But it's like, dang, like how much do you need? Like I only got 1 little spot. You got all of this. So that's how I was looking at it from a quantity point of view.
Can our woman explain that? Go to the kitchen or sit in this chair. Those are your options. Am I right?
We're gonna let Miss Nodella chime in right quick.
So with regards to like going shopping when I was married, I left him at home because I like to maximize my time. And I literally have a 20 to 30 minute maximum time capacity in the store. So I don't want to digress from my grocery list. This is what I'm going to do. So I left him home with the kids. I went and did what I had to do, and I came back home. With regards to spending quality time, my mindset is that I do believe we both need our own space and time. Now, when I was married, we both was in football. So that was quality time that we spent together. And of course, our teams were opposite teams. We were rivals. So on whatever day our teams were playing, you heard us outside the house because we would be going at it. But I also want to share that we have to remember, and I definitely understand and respect what the brothers are saying here, but we also have to open this up to everyone. There are some women, even as the Love Doctor shared, that she's into construction. All women aren't what I call dainty. I am not a real dainty woman. I'm like 75% into man stuff and 25% dainty. I'm into most sports. I'm into cars. So if my husband went to the store, he brought back a power tool, I would be interested because I want to know how it works in the event if something needs to be fixed and his time does not permit him to fix it, then I want to know how to use that power tool so I can fix it. So I grew up with a father who was a mechanic, who was a fixer-upper, and he taught me how to do things. I know how to change the oil in my car. I know how to change a tire and all those things. I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty. So, let's be mindful that not all women are not interested. And likewise, you have men interior decorators. some men may be into that. I just want to share that. So
I do like what you said. And it goes back to knowing your partner, right? If you know your partner is into those things, then when he goes to Lowe's and come back with his brand new power tool, now he's excited to share it with you. On the flip side of that, don't come in the man cave when the Bulldogs are playing and start asking me about what football is all about. What does that mean when they blow the whistle? Get out, get out. And not during the game. Not during the game. I'm just being honest. When you start questioning us during the game, we got an issue. Now, Miss Nodella, I got what you're saying, right? Y'all had two different teams. You know what they say about a house divided, right? I'm just saying.
I didn't allow it to interfere with our relationship, because afterwards, we would go back to life. Even if his team beat my team, I would still cook him a good dinner. I didn't tell him to go to McDonald's or anything. So, I'm a good sportswoman, so I don't hold any grudge. And he was pretty good about it. Sometimes he could be a sore loser, but, again, we would make it work. But I do also like what Adrian said as well, is that even in those times when you're going to make a run, and again, I won't say he never went, but it was very few times that we went. And it's up to us to make that time together what we want it to be. Even if I'm going shopping, or if he was going shopping and one of us decide, okay, I'll tag along, it's our responsibility to get the most, out of that relationship. So I did like that example as well, Adrian.
And I just wanted to add, co-sign what Coach was saying, and I'm liking what everyone is saying, because I think it's so important for us to identify that these dynamics do exist in relationships, and so we have to talk about them so that when they do rise, there won't be any confusion. But as Coach said, we have to know our partner, right? So for me, I love the fixing stuff up as well. So you talking to me about some power tools or some painting or some redecorating or renovating something, I like that. So it's just you just have to know your partner. So I think that's important. And I really have enjoyed this first question, but I want to move on to the next question, if you don't mind. Thank you guys, everyone, for your comments. I really and I hope that these comments are something that we are considering to those who are listening. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, okay? From a relationship standpoint, why do people often struggle to be honest when deciding to move on from a current relationship? So this question was asked in a post. And so I don't know who the next person was going to. Okay.
Yeah, I know I like to be the first person out to get them some of these difficult questions, right? This question leaves a lot to be desired if I first start off with that. I think as we look at this question, the assumption is made that this is done a lot of times. And I don't necessarily agree, not that I need to, right? But I don't necessarily agree that this is a majority thing, that this happens more frequently than not. I think what happens is that there's a disconnect in the space of relationship, most importantly in the space of communication. So in certain aspects of said relationship, is it possible that the other person has displayed the behavior that says that they're not necessarily in the relationship, therefore that person disconnected from that relationship and moved on? And so I think what we all have to do when it comes down to this question specifically, we need to take a long, hard look in the mirror and ask myself what that I do in the space of said relationship to make this person move on with someone else. Like, I think behavior says things that we don't allow our mouths to say. And so when we say this person moved on from the current relationship and moved into another, if that's what we're going to call it, which I'm struggling with that as well, I think we have to go back. Number one, if their behavior said that they left, they left. That's communication within itself. But then what happened prior to? Where did we go wrong in the space of joint communication, in the space of joint relationships, so forth and so on? So in the space of that, why do people struggle to be honest is the most important question. And I think most people struggle to be honest because at the end of the day, whoever they're connected to, history has shown them in the space of their connection that honesty is not wanted. Just like Roland just said a few minutes ago. Y'all want me to be honest, but you don't really want me to be honest because when I'm honest, it's rejected. So now when we entertain the idea of why do people often struggle to be honest? Because in times past, when they were honest, it was rejected. You told them that in their honesty, that's not what was really true. You told them that this may be the truth as opposed to what it is that they're telling you honestly and openly. So when they decide to move on, they've moved on simply because at the end of the day, this is no longer a relationship. This is just simply some type of, I don't know, it's not even a friendship at that point because you're not even showing yourself to be friendly. Now, let me make sure I clear up what I'm saying. I'm not saying that this person is right by moving on. I'm not saying that this person is wrong because this is what they did. I think going all the way back to the beginning, you need to decipher what your relationship is and have a clear understanding. If that person move on, is it possible that you left the relationship and in the midst of leaving said relationship, you just stayed connected for the convenience of relationship to say that I'm in a relationship? So it's a lot to be desired within the scope of this question, but I'm going to pause here because I know these brothers want to eat.
Well, give me my plate. With that being said, you hit on one. I wrote down trust and fear. You know, like you said that, you know, when I displayed honest before, how was the backlash? How was the reaction from you when I was trusting? So it's like I don't want to be honest. I want to be honest, but how is my honesty going to be received from you? But Coach hit on that, and then I would say the other part is fear. You know, and I would say I know a lot of brothers who stayed in relationships out of fear for one thing or another, whether it was fear of not being able to have a relationship with your child or your children, whether it was fear that someone was going to get half of your retirement, whether it was fear that you was going to have to pay a whole bunch of money in alimony. So sometimes there is fear because if I get out of this relationship, what is it going to cost me in the long run? And I know a lot of brothers in the military who stayed in relationships way longer than what they were supposed to, not because they wanted to, because there was a huge consequence or a huge list of consequences that was on the other side of that divorce.
Yeah, I'm with you, Uncle. I think the fear of not just the moving on, but what everything that comes with it. Oh, I'm gonna have to do this and I'm gonna have to do that. And sometimes the fear of accepting the responsibility of either your actions or the actions within the relationship, because we can get into a rut where sometimes I may not say something because now I feel that when I say it, I'll be manipulated by your feelings. Now you go into this mode where, oh, I'm trying to talk serious. You want to bring up crying and tears and all that other stuff. And that's not the adult thing to do within a relationship. If I have said problem, let's talk about said problem. If you have a problem, let's talk about it. And when I feel I'm not heard, I pull back. When I pull back, I'm almost out the door. Some people may decide to stay, but I think that will be detrimental to the relationship as a whole. That's where you have fights, arguments, and then they call in the law because somebody has to leave at this point. And instead of just having the conversation, saying, hey, it ain't work, appreciate you. And some people aren't meant to be in that type of relationship space. We thought it at first because we seen the whatever in the smile, and you got into that type of relationship, but they may be beneficial in another area, but you jumped the gun too fast. So you wound up where you are.
Man, I hate to be last in this one because they didn't leave nothing on the table for me to put on my plate. But even from the jump, from what Coach said all the way through, like that was my immediate response. Because I think sometimes women don't understand how much men pull back, right? And in the relationship, even in the communication, right? And half of it is because of past experiences, whether with you or without you. It could, but when you're constantly put in the position to where, and I think Roland actually said it best, at least to the way that I've seen and I've experienced, to where I am going to be shut up so that your emotions can lead the way. Then it creates an atmosphere to where, as a man, I really don't have the space to speak, because if your emotions is going to rule, if you're going to emotionally manipulate the situation, and that's how I view it, then what you're telling me is that my ability to see past the emotion and move differently is is not respected by you, and that becomes, for a lot of relations, or a lot of relations I see in like this, it becomes the culture in that relationship. So what the man tends to do is to shut down when it comes to communication, because I don't want to go through endless cycles every day that's going to end with you doing what you want to do, because only thing that matters is your emotional response. That can't be the only thing that matters. Two of us have in this relationship. I'm hearing you. I hear I hear what you're feeling. Now let me put my opinion in it as well, because either we're moving forward together, or you're moving by yourself and expecting me to drag along, and that's no longer a relationship. So sometimes he just lets you drag along, and he went his own direction, and we're like, how did we end up so far apart? Well, we stopped walking together. And you know what I'm saying? Like it gets more confusing as we tend to go down through it, but it's really not that confusing to us. Either we're a part of the communication all the way through, or we're not. And if we're not, what's going to happen is you're going to find that man is no longer attached to the relationship. He's just been flying by, like my brother said. Some fear sometimes kept him there long enough, or kept him there too long. But he shut out that relationship a long time ago, before it got to this point.
Okay, so what I'm hearing everyone say is that the lack of communication, fear, is why people move on and don't communicate. I'm not being gender specific, but people don't communicate because of these particular dynamics that happen in a relationship, and that there may have been some issues within the relationship and you guys didn't communicate that effectively, is what I'm hearing from the men.
So again, I'm agreeing with them. I think that's part of it.
Okay.
Again, the question is the biggest part. And if we just take the question for face value, what we're doing is we're missing all of the information that comes along with it. This question is asked from a standpoint of this happened to me. Okay. So we cannot move past that as though this is not part of the equation. That's why I said there are some assumptions that need to be made about this question. Why do people often struggle to be honest when deciding to move on from a current relationship? So the assumption can be made that the person who asked this question, I'm not judging anybody, I'm just saying, the assumption can be made that this happened to that person. And this is a question that I'm asking, not from the information that I analyze, but from the fact of what happened to me. So we don't necessarily know the truth behind the question. And what they're saying is accurate, but then by that same token, what else wasn't said in relation to this question? That's the piece that we're missing. And as long as we're missing this part, we're really just shooting in the wind at a target that doesn't exist. So I want to make sure I say that as well, because anything can be possible under the umbrella of this question.
Okay. So I want the ladies to respond before we move to the next question. If you have any comments.
I do. So what I was thinking of, as the men was talking, is, first of all, what was communicated at the start of the relationship. What was the purpose of the relationship? Because, to be honest, everybody's purpose for wanting to be in the relationship is not the long end game is to be married. Some are in it for financial security, some are in it for some other form of security, whatever their reason is. And one of the key words in this question is honesty. Everybody, when they enter into a relationship, they are not honest at the beginning. There's a lot of falsehood that starts off in a lot of relationships. But the main thing that I was thinking of is investment. If you've been in a relationship for more than 2 years, there's a certain bond that has been created. But then if you also, even whether you live together or even separately, if your finances began to intermingle, both or one of you started depending on that financial assistance from the other or from each other. So I think it also starts with or includes the investment in that relationship, even though that they were miserable. And, just for a quick moment of transparency, before we even we was married, and about a year after we got married, our rent has skyrocketed. And I said, listen, we can get a house for this amount. It'll be our entire house, our own property. I said, I want a house. And so I began to plan to get a house. And his response was, well, it doesn't matter to me. At first, he was on board. But then when it came time for us to start looking for houses, his mindset was, well, I could live in a cardboard box. Wait a minute, hold up. When did your decision change and you didn't communicate that with me? So I still wanted a house. And for him, he was like, I can go live in a cardboard box. I said, bet. I said, so I'm going to go get my house and I'll get you a cardboard box and put it in the backyard. And, that was my mindset, because I was going to get a house regardless. And he got on board. But going back to the communication piece again, when did your decision change of not wanting a house? And you didn't tell me, because I've already done all this work, got the realtor and everything. And now you're saying you don't care for a house, you can live in a cardboard box. So going back to, communication is vital. It's very important, so that there isn't miscommunication. And then even the honesty part of, when you say, what, this relationship has run its course, you should be able to share with them, listen, it may not even have been anything that the man did or that the woman did. If the relationship ran its course, it ran its course. And again, having open conversations, communication, when you get to that point, you should be able to communicate with them without having that fear also.
Can I jump in? Yes. I love what you said, Ms. Dodella, and everything you said. And this is not a shot at you, but this is how communication sometimes goes astray in relationships, because you said out of your mouth, I want a house. He ain't say that. He agreed by silence. He was like, okay, by proxy, I'm gonna move in that house too. So when he isn't as engaging as you are, because it's your house, because you wanted it, and so he's like, I can live in the doggone box. I don't care about this stuff. You like, when did we not communicate this? He never communicated it with you. You said you want it. He said, okay, whatever. And then you start planning. So he's jumping on board. And then as a man, we count costs. Okay, we were staying here, we paying this. Now she want that. She gonna want this with it. She want an in-law suite. I don't even want a mother living with us. So then other things come up. But you saying, well, we was all on board. No, you were on board and you communicated to him what you wanted, and you wanted him to fit into your plans. And when it didn't work out like that, you like, well, I don't know what. I told him what we was doing. Exactly. You didn't include him in it. You told him. And men don't deal well with that.
Real life example.
No, hold on, Coach, if you could hold on 1 second. Actually, yes. For clarification, we did have a conversation. I came to him, we sat down, and I said, listen, this rent is ridiculous. We can have a house. And he was on board at first. We did have a full conversation about it. But at some point, he changed his mind and he didn't tell me. So I said, listen, I'm not going to continue to pay rent that I can have a full house, my own backyard and all that stuff. So that's when I decided I'm going, whether you go or not, I'll put your cardboard box in the backyard and I'm moving forward. But we did initially have a conversation and he was on board. But again, he decided at whatever point and didn't communicate with me. So, but I still take what you said into consideration. And you know, that's food for thought in the future.
And I want just one more comment, then we have to move to the next question. Okay, if anybody, because the ladies, the ladies didn't get a chance to respond if they want to.
I was just going to add that that communication, as women, let's be honest, communication comes off a little different for us, right? So we feel like if we have a discussion with you, whether we don't care if you're paying attention or not. I don't want to say we don't care, but we care if you're paying attention or not, but we don't know the difference between whether or not you're paying attention. We're just talking. And if we're talking and we think you're listening or you have a posture of listening, we thought we're communicating with you and it's effective. I had to learn in my marriage or in divorce later that most of the stuff I said he didn't care anything about. When I came from I call regular backgrounds, middle class, I guess. He came from a very poor background. So my first place I lived in was a trailer. When the ceiling started molding and the floor started caving in the bathroom, I'm like, listen, either they got to come fix this stuff. I've been putting in requests. You're going to have to get behind this or we got to move. He was like, oh, okay. And it never happened. So I started looking for places to live and it was a big blow up because it wasn't his decision to do that. I didn't know how else to do that. I knew I was getting sick and it was some other issues, but I had learned later that I was communicating and he wasn't paying me no attention. I didn't realize that that's not effective and just because he was looking at you and my mouth is moving and he's standing still and stoic and my mouth is moving and I'm still talking and he's still listening and I stopped talking and he turned away. That's not communication. He just was watching me talk, literally not even listening, just watching me talk.
Coach, can you, before Miss Levine, what's the phrase you always use when people think they've communicated?
The biggest myth about communication is assuming that it happens. I mean, I just had one example to kind of support the difference between what Roland said and Sister Nodella said, because when the same thing happened with me, we was living in on-post housing right there. I think it was Persian Park. And this is when they changed to where you used to live in on-post housing for free, and then they started giving you the allowance for on-post housing and taking away from you. And she came to me and she said, we can have a house for the amount of money that we are paying for on-post housing. It wasn't her saying she can have a house. It was her saying we can have a house. That's a communication that I can process. When you start telling me what you can have based upon what I'm making and what I'm sacrificing for, that's not a communication for me. That's what you're telling me that you want. And we talked about that last time. You can want in one hand and do something in the other and see which one fill up faster. But at the end of the day, it is a we conversation. If it's not a we conversation, I'm not a part of it. I hear you. Thank you for sharing.
I was just going to say we have to select our words wisely. I take advantage of sitting down at the table having dinner, and that's when I ask for what it is that I would like to see, or can we do X? And so I get more of a response in that way. As far as honesty is concerned, I was told once before in another conversation on another platform that, for one, we don't want to, even though we want to see if the grass is greener on the other side, we don't necessarily want to give up what we got. So there is no honesty in that portion of it. So it just depends on what side of the fence you're on. Some people are honest, some men and or women are honest, and some are not.
Well, next question. Okay. what is one question? What one question do men wish women would ask?
Are you in the mood? No, I'm just playing. But
more,
but I'm gonna be honest. I know a lot of men in that situation, and they honestly wish their woman would ask them more if they were in the mood. But it's Saturday morning, and we can save that for another conversation. But so I will say that, in a sense, are you okay? And I don't mean that from a sense like, are you okay? Like how was your day? Not in general talk, but literally with concern, or with the need to really to mean it. You know what I mean? When was the last time you checked on your man? You know what I mean? And asked him, look, husband, boyfriend, are you really okay? You know what I mean? And I know sometimes we may say, are you happy? But I don't want to use the word happy, because happy is a feeling. And when you ask me, I may have had a long day and I may not be happy, but I still may be okay. Deshelle can look at me, and we've been together for 10 years, so she's starting to pick up. She has started to pick up some of my mannerisms, and good, bad, or indifferent. Now it's not as easy to hide my emotions as it used to be. You know what I mean? And that's because she's more in tune with me. We've been together for a long time, and it's just how it is. But I think one of the questions that women should just ask their man is, are you okay? I think that's a really good starting point for this, but I'm really interested in seeing what the other brothers got, but I think that's a good one.
Yeah. I like that this question came after the last question, because I had more, and this question falls right in line. Which is, what is your opinion? I've noticed more and more, and the older I get, the more I listen, that a lot of times women assume that they know our opinion on the thing, or that kind of like, and that is, and I'm not trying to backtrack, but it's kind of like with the last conversation, assuming that I concur with the situation because I was there when you articulated it. And what often does not happen is no one asks the question, "What's your opinion?" It's often, "Well, this is what I want to do, and this is what I think we should do." Blah blah blah. Good with it? Okay, that's the question you ask. Okay, I'm good with it. But then there's no further, or at least no further joint planning. A lot of times it's like, "Oh, so I saw this. This is what I got." And so to me, what's happening is this is your plan, and I'm waiting. And I guess I'm waiting for you to tell me what part I play in it. And I think that happens a lot more than people think it does. So I think it's important sometimes to stop after you've already articulated what you desire and say, "Hey, what's your opinion? What do you think we should do? Where do you think we should go from there? Because this is what I see is a problem, or this is what I think we can achieve. What do you think?"
I think I would say Chris took mine about how you're feeling, because that's important, knowing how your mate is feeling, knowing his mental status and the things that may be needed. But I think a question that I would love ask would be, how can I help you so that we can be better? Simple. I mean, because that entails my feelings, that entails my expectations, that entails a lot of me and what's going on in my mind, so that now when I articulate it to you, you can say, okay. And now when we start just breaking down the things that I got going on, now we're actually communicating, because I'm talking about real life stuff. I ain't talking about the football game. I'm talking about, okay, this is what I got going on. I may have had some stress at work. I may have had some stress actually making sure that the bills and things are paid. And so when you ask me how you can help me, now it's like, okay, if you can cut back on shopping, or if you can, this, when you talk to me, if you can say things so that I understand them, not so that you can make sure I heard them. that'll work out for me. So that's how can you help me be better?
I like that. I like all of them. My response to this question is, how can I help you do what you're called to do? I think within the scope of that, I think that acknowledges a couple of things, that I am fully committed to helping you accomplish the thing that you were called to do. I am invested. I am in here with you. It's you and I all the way to the finish line. So how can I help you accomplish what you were called to do? And I'm just going to leave it right there.
Man, that wasn't fair, bro. I want some more of that. I'm looking. I don't know. I mean, I know if you're done, you're done. But it's like you gave me a little shot of something I've never had before, and now I tasted it, and now I want more. So it ain't my show. It's up to Lisa, but I kind of want to know. I want to go a little bit deeper on what Coach just said.
555. No, I'm joking.
I got you.
No, if Lisa want me to expound, I expound.
Yeah, I mean,
said my
I think it's good for those who are listening, you know. So it's important for us to get a complete understanding of what you were saying. So I would like for you to expound a little bit more. You don't have to give away all the techniques, but some, and then the ladies can respond before we move
I give awareness, not techniques. So in the space of that question, it acknowledges a couple of things being true. It acknowledges your commitment to that person, not your own individuality and your desire to garner your piece of the pie. It acknowledges that you recognize that he is called for a higher purpose. It acknowledges that, number one, and I think somebody said it earlier, that I belong to the Most High. No, that's not what the scripture said. It acknowledges that you understand what the scripture says. It acknowledges a number of different things up under that umbrella, which means that you have a good understanding of what a committed relationship looks like. So that question acknowledges a number of things, and then it opens the door for a more deeper, more vulnerable conversation to happen. Now, if that person doesn't know what they're called to do, that's okay. But again, that opens the door for a more deeper conversation to actually happen.
Okay, ladies. Miss Levon, please, I would like you to go first on this one.
You really don't want me to go
yes,
first on this?
Yes.
Because it's clear that there's some mature men that's on this panel that you just don't meet in everyday life, okay? Because there's several men that do not know what their calling is, and no matter how many times you ask the question, what can I do to assist you? What does it look like? You take suggestions, and they still don't pick up what you're putting down. So you stop asking. At least I stop asking. I can't say that all will, and that might be the wrong mentality to have, but I'm not going to keep beating a dead horse. And so that's the reason why I didn't want to answer this question. So thanks, Lisa, for having me go.
Miss Nodella, please respond to this, to what you're hearing from the men.
So I hear what the men are saying, but I think in all fairness to women is that I've come to understand and respect that you have your brothers that you go to. And sometimes when women try to find out if he's okay, they will give like maybe a one-word answer, maybe 3 words, because unbeknownst to us, they either already had a conversation with their boys or they're going to have a conversation with their boys. And what they don't communicate to us often enough is that this is a discussion that I want to have with another man and not with you. No disrespect to you or anything like that. And so I think that will help us women better understand in those moments when he don't open up to us that it's really something that he wants to talk about with the brothers. Then just say that. Don't say, I'm fine, I'm okay, don't worry about it. Okay. well, what does that mean? Because me, I believe in the Spanish Inquisition. I will ask you all day long. No, I won't. But it will leave me in a state of wondering, why aren't you opening up to me? Is it something that I've done or something about me that caused you not to open up to me? So, I would just leave with the brothers, not just the brother. I'm not talking necessarily only to the brothers in the chat, but to, any brothers in, the panel, but also the chat, is that help us women to understand that when we come to you and say, hey, what's going on with you? And if it's something that you don't want to talk to us about, just let us know that I really would like to, talk to another brother or my brothers, about this, so that we, as the Love Doctor says, so that we don't keep rehashing and saying, hey, why aren't you talking to me? And then that causes, another issue, because this whole series have been also about effective communication. And so we want to make sure that we're always effectively communicating with the women.
Miss Adrian, please, if you have anything.
I was just gonna impart that me personally, I've asked, "Are you okay?" And I've gotten, "I'm fine," or "Yeah, why?" And I've also asked, "Is there anything I can do to help you?" And the answer I've gotten in cliche is, "Stay in a woman's place." And so I bubble up and I do just that. Stay in my place. So I am interested to understand exactly how it is that as we communicate with you all, with the brothers, when is I'm going to say that maybe it's not the best timing, right? Staying on the positive side. Maybe I'm not questioning in a good timing. So is there a time frame that those questions should come to you? Should it not be when we notice concern? Should we wait to that concern? Like Lavon says, is it a dinner table conversation? Is it a in the bed conversation? Because if you're not in the mood to answer questions like that, or you've got other stuff going on, and I know I'm gonna get fired on. I'm gonna do just that. I'm gonna bubble up and stay in my place. So help me with that. If that's a question.
I've heard. Go ahead.
I want to add something to that. And I know I've experienced this as well, right? When you ask, "Are you okay?" I think sometimes that men are not used to someone asking them that question.
That's called an assumption.
Well, I not all men,
Okay.
men. Okay, so I think that there sometimes there's men who are not used to you asking, "Are you okay?" or "Can I help you with anything?" Because I can just say, that has been an experience. "You okay?" "Well, why are you asking me that?" And so I think that can be an aspect of that as well. Oh, I mean, I didn't see that, but I have experienced that as well. So that's the only reason why I mentioned it. But yeah, that can be an aspect to it as well. I'm gonna be quiet and let Uncle Junior go ahead.
Well, to kind of to talk about it a little bit, I think timing is important, but there's no specific time. Like when you notice it, I think it's perfectly fine. I think it's perfectly fine to come to your man and say, "Hey, babe, are you okay?" You know what I'm saying? I think that if he gives you the cold shoulder, it's something a little bit deeper. You know what I'm saying? When Deshelle asked me, and I keep going back to our relationship because for the last 10 years, this is the relationship I've been in. And for us, this is anomaly, this is one relationship. This is just our relationship, but it works for us. But I don't care when she comes to me and she asks me is okay. But I also know that when it comes down to effective communication, I can't just say I'm okay. I can't just say stay in your place. So we as men have to take some ownership too. If we are talking about being effective communicators, then we need to make sure that we are effectively communicating back when we are asked a question. It shouldn't just be a simple yes unless it really is a yes. I also say that sometimes how we look is not necessarily something is wrong. Sometimes we're processing information. So how we act when something is bothering us may look different than how you guys act. You know, for me, I get quiet, not because I don't want to be around you. I'm trying to come up with a solution to whatever it is that I'm going through. So I am okay. But right now, I've got a lot of thoughts. You know what I mean? Because you just came to me and you said, hey, I want a house, right? So now I'm thinking about how all of these things work. You know what I'm saying? I just had a rough day at work. I'm fine. Everything is good, but I'm trying to process so I don't have another day tomorrow like I had today. What are some things that need to change? So I think it's okay. I think that we don't have a problem with y'all coming to us, but I think, you know, just speaking from a man, I think that because all of you guys said, I think that we sometimes may need to do better in how we respond to you guys when y'all ask us how we are doing, you know. And I think that, you know, like I mentioned earlier, Shell knows after 10 years, it's not as easy to hide all of my behaviors no more like they used to be in day one. You know what I'm saying? So she knows when something is wrong, and then she will do what she can do to make me feel better sometimes, or try to make me feel better as I with her. You know, there may be that time and she like, blah, I was like, oh, I already know what day it is. So I may go to the store and get her some flaming hot Cheetos, she like root beer and some Reese cups. You know what I'm saying? It may work. And another thing, if you can't talk, there ain't nothing wrong with writing a letter. There ain't nothing wrong with sending a text. Hey, babe, I seen you was down today. You walked through the door. It looked like something was bothering you. I just want to let you know if you need anything, I'm here for you. You know what I mean? I'm going here and I'm gonna make this dinner, and then this where I'll be at. I'm just saying, however things work in your relationship, but nothing wrong with sending a text message or writing a little note or something like that either.
I like all of that. And I think we need to understand that there might be a slight possibility that we're believing that he is supposed to be able to communicate like I communicate. And I think that is one of the biggest problems that exists in the space of communication. We're expecting you to communicate the exact same way that I communicate. Because if you ask me what's wrong, I'm going to tell you what's wrong. Because I want you to know what's wrong, because I know that you are a problem solver. But to a problem solver, like Garfield said, we process and we try to figure out solutions to said problems. We don't necessarily involve you in the problem solving process that is going on here, because I am trying to figure out the best solution to come to said problem. I think to the point that if you ask a question and he says that, oh, I need to go talk about this with the fellas or what, this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like, those relationships are necessary. Men need external relationships of their relationship with men. Women need external relationships with women. In fact, you should want that, because they actually are an extension of your relationship. So they allow them to talk things out. Like, men should be able to talk about men problem with men to see how they handle certain things, because that can help them come to a solution. But to automatically assume that they are being defensive, that's a you thing. That has nothing to do with him. Maybe him asking you, like, well, why did you ask that? Because maybe he is trying to understand the energy that he's given off at this particular point in time. But to automatically assume that he is being defensive may not necessarily have anything to do with him. So I think one of the biggest lessons that we can take from this is that however that person communicates in that space, let that be true. Let that be a factual thing without any judgment from your behalf. If we can do that, now we can get to the text message that Garfield said. Hey, I see you had some things, look like you had something going on. If you need to talk, I am here. That right there Like I can't win that right there. That goes a long way because now you're making yourself available and not necessarily trying to impose and say, hey, I'm asking a question. I want you to talk to me right now. No, it don't work that way because problem solvers are trying to figure out solutions. When he gets to a certain point, then he may feel more apt to come to you and say, okay, this is what I was thinking. Give me your thoughts. That's a much more easier space to communicate. So don't assume that we communicate like you. That's the first place. Secondly, move all assumptions from the equation. Analyze the facts. The fact is, I asked, are you okay? You said yes. Let that be good enough. I think the space of communication, we believe that, oh, I need to add context to his yes. No, you don't. No, you don't. Let his yes be good enough for now. And then just like Garfield says, send him a text message, leave him a note on your way going to work and whatever the next day, whatever that looks like. But again, allow the space of relationship, the space of communication to mature. Because here's the reality of it. Like I said previously, maybe in the past, when he tried to share with you what was going on in his head, oh, you'll be all right. It's all good. We call that toxic positivity, but that's a whole nother conversation.
I just want to be short with this one, if I can, because everything that they just said is to, and this is to me, but this is how men see and resemble intimacy. Because now I trust that you care and concerned about what you're asking me. It's not just a question thrown out there because you see something wrong, because there's been a pattern where you show concern about what was going on with me. So now when you ask, it's because you see something, not just because you're prying or because you're checking the block. So that intimacy helps build the relationship. So where now you may not even have to ask. I'll come to you because I know that there's a concern. So we start to actually communicate, actually talk.
I want to piggyback off that real quick and just talk about relationships in general. Even if you take away the husband and the wife or the boy and the girl, look at it from a relationship. I think everybody up here has children, right? Does anybody not have children? All right, so you don't. Okay, so everybody else does. So you remember when your child was young and there was a baby, and you could tell the difference in the crying, and you could tell if they need to be changed. You could tell if they were hungry. You could tell if something bothered them just based off the tone in their cry. So it's the same thing that goes into the relationship. The more intimate you are together in the relationship, the more both parties will be able to see and understand when someone is off a little bit. You know, when Shell is off, I can tell because we have a very intimate relationship. And just FYI for everybody, intimacy ain't got nothing to do with sex. Just saying, it ain't got nothing to do with that. Intimacy, you can take out that altogether and you can still have intimacy. You know what I'm saying? So when you're intimate with someone, you can see a lot of these things. You know how to communicate. You know if that person responds well to a letter or a text or your words or roses or whatever, chocolate. You know, so if you work on the relationship, like Coach said, the most important personal relationship, a lot of these things will kind of work themselves out as you navigate through the journey of a relationship.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the next question. And this one most likely will be the last question. But yes, I've enjoyed everything. I had a few thoughts, but I'm gonna, save those for later. But let's get to this question. So, because Garfield just navigated us right on into this question right here. So, how do you define intimacy, and what is the role of emotional safety in fostering it?
Intimacy. How do you define intimacy? I think intimacy is a close-knit relationship between a person and something, because you can have an intimate relationship with an object. But when we're talking about couples, that's what we're talking about. We're an intimate relationship. I have a knowledge of, I have a care for and a concern for the well-being of the other person. And when we come together, we both have this. Now our common goals and common concerns build up a trust that breeds intimacy. So now it's like Unc said, it's not about the sex. They call that part being intimate because of the closeness, because of the connection. But when you can have that connection through other things, whether it be knowing her snacks, that's what Unc was talking about, or knowing her likes, knowing his likes and dislikes, knowing how they communicate. Now the intimacy portion of your relationship expands because you're growing, because I know how to make them move in a better way, and I know how to move them in a negative way. But I choose not to do that because of the relationship, because I'm trying to build. That's at you, Gabby.
Yeah, I was trying to hit the unmute button. Hey, how to define intimacy is knowing the person you're trying to be intimate with, because it looks different, right? I think building the bond of, like he said, like Unc said, him and his wife been together for 10 years. She knows his mix, she knows his behaviors, and when we are intentional about how we treat and approach each other, that in and of itself creates the intimate response with each other, knowing that you are there for me, not just you, like we said last question, not just you asking me, am I okay, but you actually, your behavior showing that you care that whether or not I'm okay. Because a lot of times, especially with men, things are more. And Roland said he's passive aggressive. I don't know. The more I get to know my brothers, not just here on this panel, I think in relationships, a lot of times, we respond with our behavior more than anything, especially if we've been communicating and we don't see certain responses. But these conversations have to be had. Why you respond? Why you react this way? Everything that we talked about today, actually get into the nitty gritty of why your partner's ticks are what they are, and knowing what they are, right, creates the intimate bond. But when I feel like I don't know you or you don't know me, there's nothing intimate we can really do. We're two strangers living together, and that's the harsh reality more times in relationships that struggle. That's the harsh reality more times than not, is that we end up being two strangers just existing in the same space. So let's get to know each other. Let's be intentional about understanding each other and about responding to what the other person is giving off. And I believe intimacy will build itself.
Come on, Gaddy, with the intimacy. All right, so for me, when I'm looking at intimacy and the role of social safety and this question and stuff, I think that first of all, intimacy is the trust, and then vulnerable. It's like intimacy and trust. If I'm saying it right. No. Intimacy. Let me just look at my notes. I write chicken scratch sometimes. So intimacy, what I wrote down, has to do with trust and vulnerability. And then I put down emotional safety is like the base that allows someone to be able to open up. So that's kind of how I look at it, and like I mentioned before, intimacy is not just about the physical part. It's about feeling secure enough to, in a sense, let your guard down. But it's kind of hard sometimes, especially if someone doesn't respect our position or just may not respect us in general. So the first part of that, like I said, when it comes to defining intimacy, for me, like I said, I think that it is trust and being vulnerable. And the role, like if I don't trust you and I can't be vulnerable with you, then that's going to have a huge play in my emotional safety in the relationship. I'm not going to open up to you. I'm not going to share things with you. I'm not going to necessarily feel like when you ask me, am I okay? Like you really care, or is it, I'm not going to feel that way. I'm not going to think that way, because there is no intimacy, and there's no trust, and there's no vulnerability that has been developed in the relationship. Or if it has, it may have been trashed, or I may have been vulnerable about something, and then we got in an argument and you threw it up in my face, and now I'm just like, you know what, I'm done with this whole being vulnerable for right now, until a certain level of trust is built back up in the relationship. So, and like I said, that all plays a huge role in the emotional safety. I need to know that when I go to Shell, that we can have a conversation, maybe not at that moment, but I need to know that we can have the conversation, and we can get through whatever it is we're going through, and have the conversation and come up with a solution. Can't do that if we don't have no good intimacy, no vulnerability, no trust, and the emotional safety has been trashed in the relationship. You won't be able to get there.
The Bible says, husbands, get along with your wives according to knowledge. I will start off by saying that if we can replace the word trust with maturity, we would do well. Especially in the interaction between person to person space, because trust is reserved for one person and one person only. So at the end of the day, and this isn't a shot at what anyone said previously. I want to make sure I'm clear when I'm saying that, because at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about maturing in relationship. Intimacy now equates to the depth and breadth of the relationship itself. It represents the gravitropic and phototropic nature of a plant, of a tree. So now the relationship has the propensity to grow, because we are maturing, not just individually, but collectively. So that's define intimacy. The role that emotional safety plays in fostering it, it's the infrastructure that exists in order to allow that to happen. What do I mean when I say infrastructure? I have learned to govern myself to such a degree that when you come forth and share your point based upon a question I ask you, are you okay? Why do you ask? I don't assume that you're defensive. That's the maturity aspect of it. So the emotional safety piece means that this is a space to where you can be honest and transparent about what you're dealing with, what you're going with, how that's affecting you in real time. And I now nurture that, because at the end of the day, that's what I'm called to do. And if we conflate those things, assuming that emotions and intimacy is the exact same thing, we just missed the mark. We just missed the mark for a great relationship to actually happen. Again, intimacy is all about the depth and breadth, and it represents the gravitropic and phototropic nature of a tree. And emotional safety is the infrastructure to allow that to actually happen.
Now, I want to add to this, because I think that part of what I'm hearing is that the maturity in the relationship is going to help you to identify if there is an issue with your partner, and you asking them, in the way they respond, you also have an ideal of, if you've been in a long-term relationship with them, you have an ideal of their, how they respond, if it's defensive or if it's something saying like, give me some time. I need some time to think over this, and then we can, continue the conversation. See, that I can respect, but just being defensive, because sometimes that is what it is. It's not all the time. It's that you're reading into something that you're not, that the person is saying, because you have an idea of who they are, how they respond to you. So I think that aspect is there as well. But when I think about the emotional intimacy and the role that it plays, I always think about iron sharpening iron is what I think about, because the two people are coming together and they're trying to make sure that they benefit each other, and there is creating a cohesive, trustworthy connection with them, and they are gradually, the process of becoming one. And so I think all of those aspects, to me, when I think about intimacy, is us coming together, maturing in a relationship that we are developing, and we're growing together. We can identify each other's behavior. And because, the word of God, I think it's 1 Corinthians 2:15, tells us to, to I can't even think of the scripture right now at this very moment, but I'll get back with you what it says. I'll get back with you what it says. I'm drawing a blank right now. But it tells us, in other words, to observe all behavior, but don't judge the behavior, but not the person. That's what it's saying. Judge the behavior, because we can identify the behavior. I mean, it's identifiable if we're in a long-term relationship. Or even if we're not, we can identify this behavior is not a behavior that is becoming of what we say we're going to do.
Sure, absolutely. Agreed. But in judging behavior, again, that's why I am so against the assumptive nature of him being defensive. Only thing we're identifying is the actual behavior, the fact as it is. When I add defensive to it, that came from me, right? Only thing I have to do is look at how they're posturing themselves and then go back to the only thing I'm called to govern, which is me. If I go back to governing me and not assuming that I'm responsible for governing you, then I don't put a title on what I observe. I observe what I observe and let that be the facts. And then now, how do I respond to that? That's the piece. So that's why I say what I say the way that I say it, because at the end of the day, too much judgment exists in the space of human interaction. If Roland does a thing because of our relationship, I have a responsibility to tell him what I observe, not my opinion about what I observe. You know what I'm saying? When I get into the opinion about what I observe, now I can say that I am judging the person. I don't have the right to do that. I have the right to share with him what I see so he can make the adjustment if he sees fit only. That doesn't change when it's two heterosexual people. When it's two people coming together, right, in the space of more personal interaction, male versus female, or whatever, people doing today. I think that's the thing. Why do we view, men, bros hanging out, women hanging out? Why do we view that as being a different type of relationship per se, or we behaving that different than when it comes down to men and women interacting with one another? Why do we change the rules when we change the sex? That doesn't make sense to me. So again, what I observe, I share with him exactly what I observe. Hey man, you all right? You looking kind of, whatever. So now he has an opportunity to respond. However he respond, namaste, right? When I go to her, say, hey, you good? You got this look on your face. Why do you ask? Oh, you being defensive. No, see, that's what we're in error. No, okay, I get it. Namaste. And that's it. Hey, if you need to talk, I'm here. That's the difference of what we're talking about. Again, intimacy, depth and breadth, emotional safety is the infrastructure. Get right emotionally before we get into a relationship. If we can do that, then we make space for intimacy. If we don't do this right here, if we don't do the work on us from an emotional standpoint so that we can be that person, then every time we get into a relationship, it's judgment, 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 judgment. Then when he leaves and don't say nothing, you're trying to figure out why. Nobody got time for that. I'm out.
You know what? I'm so you. So intimacy, into me see. So I look for I look at the person themselves without having any judgment. And for example, back in September, there was something that had come up and I had lost all track of time, all the day and everything. And when I realized what day it was, I sent a text message saying, hey, I know today may be rough for you, but I'm sending peace and love, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Because I pay attention and into him, I see that this may be a day because this is a reminder or any other thing. I think that's what true intimacy is. It allows me to say, hey, I know it's rough. You're having an emotionally rough time. And so I foster the safety of that in seeing into him or her or the situation without having my own judgment about that situation.
For me, intimacy, developing intimacy in a relationship, I kind of go hand in hand with that quality time. Having those conversations, especially, I know everybody here mostly is married, but especially when you're developing relationship, having that opportunity to getting to know someone, taking those long trips or road trips through the country and just talking and understanding what the other person dreams, what their purpose is, what God has called them to be, and getting to know each other on a deeper level, or I call it peeling back the onion. That is how I would define intimacy when you are dating or starting to get to know someone. Emotional safety, I think, comes along after you've been building the intimacy for a little bit of time. And I do associate that with being vulnerable. Maybe not telling everything, but being more vulnerable with the person that you're with or your potential partner than you would with other people on another level. So that's how I would define it. What is your role as far as the emotional safety? I think just being able to just be in that person's presence and allowing them to kind of, again, peeling it back an onion, kind of unfolding themselves when you're starting to get to know someone as you are building that intimate relationship. That would be what I wanted to add.
My perspective on this question is.
If you just allow me one moment, Ms. Nodella. After Ms. Nodella, we're going to start wrapping up with our final thoughts, you guys. And this to me, has been a really interesting conversation. And just listening to it and considering what everyone is saying, I so appreciate us, being able to ask the questions and get honest responses from the men. So I do appreciate us, taking the time to have this dialogue, and hopefully that it has helped someone who is listening in and may not be participating in the chat. But after Ms. Nodella finishes her statement, we want to allow the men to give their final thoughts, and then Ms. Nodella, Ms. Levon, Ms. Adrian, and then myself. Okay.
So my answer essentially is that intimacy first and foremost started with the father. And if you don't have a relationship with him, you're not going to have the full or true understanding of what intimacy is. We also need to respect each other's individual perspective or belief of what intimacy is. But the important part about that is we need to take time to learn from each other what is our understanding of intimacy, so that there is no misunderstanding, which fosters emotional safety. I believe the two go hand in hand. When you feel emotionally safe, it will foster or even cause you to want to be intimate more. But even as you're being intimate more, it will also reciprocate with you being emotionally safe. And it will allow you to be transparent, and also to be open and honest with each other. And so as we all seek out to have intimate moments, we understand that intimacy is not about the sexual aspect of it. When you look at ultimately any relationship, the sexual aspect of intimacy is actually the culmination of what you built up in that relationship. And even if it's in a day's time, you built up some kind of connection to where you felt safe enough to be sexually intimate with that individual. And so we just need to make sure that our mindset isn't that intimacy is all about the sexual or even physical aspect, but we actually have more intimate moments emotionally, verbally, psychologically, even spiritually. and the non-sexual physical aspect of intimacy. We have all of those far more than we could possibly have sexual intimacy. And when we began to focus more on those, the sexual part of it, again, is just a culmination of all the other types of intimacies that we have, and it's also healthier.
Okay, we are going to start our final thoughts. Okay. Did anyone else have anything to say on this before? Good. Okay. All hearts and minds clear. Okay. It sounds like we had this dead space here, but I want us to give our final thoughts on this topic. And I do again appreciate the Hearts and Men, coming and participating in the conversation with us, and just being, transparent. I think it's important. There were some things that I've learned just listening to your perspectives, and how you have, may view some things that I didn't even consider. So I really do appreciate this conversation and the time you guys have come to spend with us. So we're going to go ahead and start our final thoughts. And
just to get clarity, who's going first, men or women? And what did you say the order of women was again?
Well, okay. So I said, I think Miss Levon, then Miss Nadella, and then Adrian and myself. But, we can go first. We've let y'all do all the talking, if you want to, and you can finish us out. But we can certainly go ahead.
Your call. You tell me. I just want to make sure I'm doing things decently and in order.
Okay. We'll go ahead and get started. Miss Levon, if you don't mind giving your final thoughts. I'm not putting you on the spot, Miss Levon.
But she's putting you on the spot.
You're putting me on the spot. I truly do, and have enjoyed the conversation in the two parts. I would say my biggest takeaway is true connection thrives on mutual respect, unfiltered honesty, and the courage to be vulnerable. I believe that we should remember to listen deeply, speak truthfully, and show up authentically. Thank you so much. You're on mute.
This has been a wonderful conversation today. I'm so thankful to be amongst a community of men and women who we can effectively communicate and get different perspectives. I hope that everyone picked up something today, and I definitely did. Understanding that the crux of a lot of our differences comes with communication style. And I love the fact that I have a community of brothers here with us to share their thoughts and their feelings about our intimate styles of communicating. The best part about it is that we have men who've been in relationships and know the Most High that can give us some keen insight on that. I do believe that within this community and with conversations like this, that we can grow and we can become better. And with that, I will land. I love you all. And until next time.
I have truly, I enjoy all of the conversations. This is my first on the panel, and I greatly appreciate this time and space to be able to share my perspective as well. And definitely I send kudos out to our brothers on the panel for your openness, for your transparency, and being vulnerable to help us women how to better navigate in our relationships. I know for me personally that I have my own thoughts and my own perspectives of what I desire in a relationship. But this conversation for sure has definitely or will definitely help me to fine tune my perspective to ensure as much as humanly possible a successful relationship when, if I should enter into another one. And even as my sisters have already said, we have to be open-minded, because I know sometimes we women, we tend to take charge. But I want our brothers to understand that when we do that, that's part of our nature as being the help need that God has called for us to be. However, we do need to learn to harness that and understand that there is a time and a place for us to take charge. So I look forward to our continuing conversation on this connection and wanting to know what men think.
I'm just grateful to be a part of this conversation. But as my final thought, I'll just say, we just have to be intentional. There's a lot of good information that has been put out in this conversation in this community as a whole. But the intentional piece is taking it in, examining yourself, seeing where we can be better and be more beneficial to the success of our relationships, whether they are intimate relationships or friendship or professional, whatever. There's a part that you and I play that makes our experiences better and more effective. And my responsibility is to figure out how, and to once I find that out, to apply it. Or I should leave my situation better than when I showed up. That's just how I believe all men should view it. Every situation I show up in, it should leave better because I added some level of value. With that, I say blessings and Shabbat Shalom.
Gotta unmute first. I love this because I posted earlier that intimacy is the closeness that brings forth fruit of the relationship. And that's why with my brothers, we have an intimate relationship because we have an expectation that some good fruit will come out of this thing. So whenever you get into a relationship, whether it's platonic or whatever the relationship is, you want to build. You were called to multiply of likeness. So when we have like-minded brothers, the brothers that come along and go along with us, they must be like-minded. We are in the mood of developing, not just staying stagnant. So the intimacy portion is knowing one another, being able to build and become mature within that relationship so that when it does mature, it benefits not just us, but others around us. So I love the questions asked. I appreciate the platform. And I look to continue to learn as well as have input on developing relationships and building the growth of our community.
I remember when I was growing up, I used to hear about this book, and this book was called Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. And I say that to say that we are different, and that's okay. But I think having conversations like this helps both male and female, men and women, help have a better understanding of what goes on in the minds of the opposite gender. I think it's okay that we're different. I think that's a good thing. I like the fact that we came on here for this is the second show about questions that women want to ask men. I think that even though we hit a few today, I think we got to 8 over the last 2 different podcasts, but I think there are hundreds and hundreds of more. So I wrap up and I say all that to say that, as we continue on our journey, it's a really good idea to have conversations and have understandings from people who are different than you. And in this situation, or in this case, or in this podcast, we're talking about males and females, men and women. So I don't think you can ever learn too much about the person that's an opposite sex or an opposite gender of you. I think, the more you know about someone who is different, the more it can help you and the more it can be better in relationships. So I just think this has been a good idea. I don't know who came up with it, but I appreciate you. I want to tell you that publicly right now. So that's all I got to say for my final thoughts, and I'm looking forward to the next conversation.
Outstanding. I think this was a great conversation as well. I like the fact that the foundational understanding for this conversation is unification. And I think too many times when you listen to relationship conversations in different spaces, they're talking from a divisive perspective. And it's also being shared from a space of dominance and controlling and all of those other things that has absolutely nothing to do with relationships. Remember, relationship is pretty much the state of you being in the state of how you relate to something else, not how you make something else relate to you. And I think when you start paying attention to conversations such as this one, where you hear different perspectives being considered, not necessarily being shot down, saying that you're wrong, I don't agree. I think once we realize that people don't share their perspective for you to agree or disagree, they share their perspective for you to consider. And if we have that posture going forward when it comes down to a relationship, then we can possibly learn something from someone else. If we have that mindset, then I am open to learn, then and only then can we get to the point to where we can grow as a culture and grow as a community, and then grow in the space of personal and professional relationship. And I'll end there and let the voice of reason close us out with her awesomeness.
Man, thank you guys so much. This has been an awesome conversation, and I hope it's been a help to anyone who will even go back and watch this. You know, it's so important for us in our community. We desire that we can come together and we can effectively communicate with each other to grow and become a more healthy communication, a more healthy community. And so I thought this conversation would be something to be very important that people would engage with, and people would be interested in hearing, you know. And I had allow people to ask some of these questions in the chat so that we can pose them on this platform. So I'm so thankful that we had the opportunity. And I know some of the things, as I listen, they may have not been what you expected, but I think it's more important that not that we only gauge our perspective based on what we think, but we have to hear what the men are saying. It's important for us to be in relationship. So I really do appreciate this conversation, and I'm so thankful that that the men from the Hearts of Men podcast agreed to come on and allow the Hearts of Women to host them. Now, with that being said, we are a part of a community on the Empowering Perspective. You can find us on the Total Mindset Shift mindsetshift.com, and you can come to our platform. You can find us on YouTube channel. There's so many videos that are there on the Empowering Perspective YouTube channel that you can see, and you will be able to see this one again as well on that particular platform. And also my YouTube channel is Renewed Consideration as well. So we want to invite you to come engage. You have questions. You want to learn more about our community. We come together because we desire to grow and heal in our community so that we can be helpers one to another. So thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Until next time, and we will see you, and we will make sure that we announce our upcoming show for next month. Thank you so much.